Larry's
in the sky.
Yeah, Larry's in the sky. Sky flower.
Larry's Dhaka, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Skyflower. That's a good name.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the ordination.
Yeah.
Skyflower.
Sounds like it's from the 70s.
Yeah.
We have wallflower. We don't have skyflower. We have the term wallflower.
Sky flower means it's impossible.
That's the one. That's the name I should have. Impossible.
Larry's impossible.
So instead of saying he's impossible, he's sky
May
flower.
will even vouch for that I'm possible. You'll swear on whatever book you want her to swear on.
So I'm the rabbit horn.
You're the right.
Impossible is taking lessons from the rabbit.
Yeah. Son of a berry woman.
To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond,
The fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, the Lord of the world, supreme guide of beings to retain, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely, fully awakened one,
the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, the completely and fully awakened one,
the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge.
to the teacher, the blessed one,
the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer,
the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed,
teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely
and fully awakened one, the
blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan,
I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, king that blazes in the three worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the three worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, feel the merit qualities like a vast ocean. To you, the one gone to thisness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who were liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who were devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit in non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew above, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chanju Pado Tane Jasus. Dagin Jizoje Besonam Je Jola Benje Sanje Drubus. Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chanju Pado Tane Jasus. Dagin Jizoje Besonam Je Jola Benje Sanje Drubus. Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chanju Pado Tane Jasus. Dagin Jizoje Besonam Je Jola Benje Sanje Drubus. Sanje Jono Zoje Jono no Chanju Pado Tane Jasus. Dagin Jizoje Besonam Je Jola Benje Sanje Drubus.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Lama Tsongkaphas.
Through the merit of creating and practicing giving and other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit of creating and practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Lama Tsongkaphas. Through the merit of creating and practicing giving and the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Tamje Gemma Laja, Zoma Deda Sanje Jumden, and the Shenshim. Dajuma Yanda Bonzo Besa Jerry Bata Shazon Demo Devolution. Jiden Gemma Jubon de Bogano Jubana, Fada Mena Sanje Jumden Deasu. The Shen Java de Sonata Bejutum, Gazawana, Chuma, Super. Sonam Jederanam Dish, Bejas and Bodom Jetu, Senam Jemadoja, Juyu Remato, Tona, Midimba Meva, Teve Meva, Sheriff Sijim, Tona Ziva Meva, Sinjatam Jeju, Tomba, Sanjus, Yap, Pavia Kazana Jeju, Yangan, the Botrojo, Yeshipa, Baba Sanjim, Sonam Bata, Yanim, Kujata, Chomich, Kutumba, the Bata, so that any one Mogo Sumevata, the Devana machine, the Java Young, don't want number two, Sibala to Chua and give a Young. Devata Majimba, Tatasha, Sanjim, the Yishem, Young and the Yana Yatala never Simjatam jealousy, Samashu, the Damas and Jim. Kushime and the Yana Namazu, Tabation, Otoma gave up, but we give up. Central Samba, Deva, Young, Chow. Yang da ba to ne me ba tu she ba me ba to de thon ma tu yo ke ba me so so re wa je wa jem ne je le wa so me chen de wa la le wa je ma zo be chen de wa me de ma me je de wa da de ma te ma yo wa je ba wa te wa che me de ne wa shu wa re wa shu wa shu tu ba shu ba te ma je be yo so ke ba cha je be yo so ke so na je pe ji xin yan so ju wa che ba je me ne so ju ko no je be ne so ju ba chen bo 관계야 동안 된저도 꾸며놓고 소조 초반에 산재되는 차세. I think page number 246 or 246. So how the ultimate in convention will become as such from the perspective of ordinary beings and Arya. So this is, making a distinction between the conventional ultimate truth from the perspective of ordinary beings and the Arya beings. So usually I say, how do you distinguish conventional truth and ultimate truths? Ultimate truths beyond reach of the thought, right? And uncompounded, uncreated by the thought, which is the absence of intrinsic natures. And what is the conventional truth? Conventional truth is through the designations, things that relatively exist, or things that exist through mental projections. So that's the conventional and the ultimate truth. Now here, in this text, saying there's another way of making a distinction, the ultimate and conventional truth, from the two perspective. So perspective of ordinary beings and Arya beings. The commentary says that which is the ultimate for ordinary being is merely conventional for those Aryas who still possess the spirit of experience within, which dualistic and as perceptions remain. So it's, and from the literally it's saying that whatever the ordinary beings find ultimate or true, that very thing is for the Arya is still conventional, is unreal. Ordinary beings find their relations, house, yourself and others, and the cause and effect, and the concept of general particulars, concept of nations. The ordinary being sees them as truly exist. So those conventional ordinary beings find as ultimate and true. For the Aryas, from the Aryas' perspective, is unreal and falsely exist. So emptiness, the nature of these merely conventional entities is the ultimate truth for them. Because from the Arya's perspective, so all the conventional realities are falsity, or it's unreal, and which means it is ultimately not truly exists. That absence of true existence is the ultimate for the Arya beings. So which means now the color we see is true. There's the colors. So right, we say, oh, there's the orange color, there's the blue colors. So we all kind of I think without any doubt, we accept the color exists by its own nature. The color exists in and of itself, and the sound, the smell, the taste, the textures, and then concepts, the relations, nations, the countries, a forest, a garden, a mala. So whatever we verbally identify something, every entity for the ordinary beings is the true nature. So then the entity that is found in the ordinary perspective, perceptions, as a true, but all not true or unreal for the Arya, because the Arya beings sees exactly they are not, empty of intrinsic nature. So the meaning of the first part is this: the phenomena such as vast, which ordinary beings grasped as a possessing the ultimate existence, remain merely conventional for three classes of Aryas referred to above who experience the dualistic perceptions in post-equipoise state. So post-equipoise, in the meditative state or unmeditative states. So in the meditative states, nothing really exists. Nothing really exists. All acts like space, equal. And then post-equipoise, unmeditative states, their mind is, engaged in those conventional realities. So the conventional reality seems to exist by their own essence. So at the same time, every time the conventional realities appear to the Arya's mind, simultaneously, Arya's one part of the mind understands these are not really exist by their own essence. So ordinarily, yes, as I mentioned earlier, it's like a magician and audience. So the audience, they get excited, they get afraid by the illusion that played by the magician. A magician also see this whole illusion, but they understand they are not real. So the arising from the meditative equipoise, the Chandrakirti statements negates such phenomena to be true for these beings. It does not negate these to be conventional truth for them. And it also does not suggest that conceived object, ordinary beings who grasp as vast and so on, having ultimate existence, becomes the conventional for the Aryas. Such conceived objects have no interest, no existing at all. As for the latter part of the citations, it states that the ultimate nature of the things, which is the nature of the dependently originated conventional truth, dependent originated, therefore conventional truth, is the ultimate for the Arya. So to assert that one and the same things are vast, for example, is itself the conventional truth for the ordinary beings and ultimate truth for the Arya, contravenes the meaning of the text. Such utterance reveals the ignorance of the fact that to establish something as a conventional truth entails that it is negated first and the true within the perspective of the cognitions. Yeah, this is what he's saying. So you cannot, this is saying that, so there's, for example, if someone who is interpret this, the Chandrakirti's commentaries, the line that we already read here, which is the ultimate for the ordinary beings, merely conventional for those Arya who still possess the spirit of experience within the dualistic perceptions remain. The emptiness, the nature of these merely conventional entities as the ultimate truth for them. So if someone interpret that like, the vase, the table, human, so so these are for the ordinary beings, the ordinary beings that experience or conceived are conventional, but to the Arya is ultimate. So which that is the misinterpretations. It's not saying things that is conceived by ordinary beings are ultimate truth for the Arya beings. So here's saying, things that conceived and imagined and perceived by ordinary beings. For the ordinary beings, it is true. For that, those conventional, for the Arya beings, is absence of intrinsic natures. So what they see is the ultimate nature of the conventional realities. Right? So, so misinterpretations, yeah.
Yashila,
Yeah.
isn't like a base for non-Buddhist or Satantrika, isn't that an ultimate truth?
The race.
The base.
Uh-huh.
Isn't
Satantric school.
yeah, isn't
Satantric schools, their kind of, definition of ultimate truths is things that are functioning through the cosmic conditions are ultimate truth. And of course, the race, table are all ultimate truth. Anything that are functioning due to cosmic conditions are ultimate truths. Then imaginations, the mental projections, they are not functioning due to its cosmic condition. So these is called conventional. So from the Satantric school understanding, the table is ultimate truth. And the race is ultimate truth. So yourself and others are all anything that is a functioning, right, due to the cosmic condition is ultimate truth. So things that not really functioning due to cosmic condition, things that merely exist through the mental projections are conventional. Kunzo. Then when it goes down in the Vivasika school, it then says, oh, the table is not ultimate truth, it's a conventional truth. Because the identity of the table can be destroyed by the hammer. And any identities that is remain, not being able to destroy by, the outer cosmic conditions, like a hammer and things like that. So those are ultimate truths. Then, what do you call space is the ultimate truth. Bashik schools, space is the ultimate truth. And the trees, the tables are not ultimate truth. So I think different definitions of the ultimate truths. Mm-hmm. For the Vivasika school, the race is not the ultimate truths. Mm-hmm. So ultimate is something that cannot be identity that cannot be destroyed by any physical things.
Would this happen to be the school that also says that the self, the ignorance stemming from the self is a problem, but like external phenomena can exist on their own, and that ignorance, that's not a problem? I can't remember the term. Or is that a different school?
External?
So the idea that it's afflicting emotions can come from the ignorance of a self truly existing.
Yeah.
But for like external objects and them, like the perception of them truly existing, that's not a problem.
Yeah, that's not a delusional ignorance. Right. Yeah.
Is this the same school, similar? Or
yes. The Satantric school, Vivasika school, and even the mindfulness school, they all agree with this part.
Okay.
So the ignorance, the true part, afflicted ignorance, and non-afflicted ignorance. So in even those schools kind of quoted from the sutra, they say, oh, this is how, Mongol Putra, who wished to see his deceased mom, where she born, he couldn't see through his clairvoyance, although he is the arhat. So that not knowing of, you know, the mothers where she born is not how to say is a non-afflicted ignorance. So so the ignorance, the kind of divided into two: the afflicted ignorance and non-afflicted ignorance. That accepted in Ravashika school, Sudantika school, Minority school, even the middle autonomous school, they still say that. Now, when it comes to true truth, and in Ravashika school, they have their own, definition of ultimate truth and conventional, and the Sudantika school, and then the Minority school. Minority school, the Sudantika school, a little bit, there's similarities. So the Varachika schools, the identity of things cannot be destroyed by any physical things, or even by dissecting by the thought. So if the identity disappears with that, then that is not ultimate. So you cannot, divide it, or identity of the space can be destroyed by any physical, and space also, identity of the space also cannot be destroyed by, conceptually dissecting. So still the space, and then there goes, particles, ultimate truths, and then this is Jungwa, the potential of the elements are ultimate truth. So the Russian school thinks there's a very, very, what do you call it? The pure state of energies, so which the origin of all the outcome elements. These elements are ultimate truth, cannot be destroyed, identity of that. And then the space and the particles, the small, so minute particles, they're talking about minute particles. And then within the minute particles, there's this minute partless particles, right? So these are they considered as the ultimate truths. So then Sotantika schools, the ultimate truth means things that can function due to its own kind, cosmic condition. So that's ultimate truth. So ultimate truths, something that can, by moving or kind of the processing, giving rise to another effect, is the ultimate truths. Things cannot give rise any effect and still exist is conventional. Like imagination of the apple and the apple. The apple is ultimate truths. It can, give rise to effect. It can, by eating, it can overcome the hunger, the thirst. Right? So the apple is ultimate truth. Now, when it comes to the imagination of the apple, it cannot be eaten. So there is no effect. So this, but imagination, the apple is also existence. It exists, but it has no function by itself. So the imagination of the apple is conventional. Apple is the ultimate. Right. So
It seems like they're saying they're two separate things. They're not,
Yeah, it's kind of this way, horse and cow.
Yeah.
Like almost like.
It's like, but it's an apple. What are you saying?
So
Yeah.
the imagination, the apple and the apple. So one is the ultimate truth, one is conventional truth. So I think conventional truths, particularly here, I think it's like Kunzum Denma, kind of deceptive phenomena, or deceptive phenomena, or concealed phenomena. Something that is this imagination of the apple is they consider is the deceptive. Means it deceives the mind. It seems like real apple, right? So for example, when you get angry, right? So we directly, what you're angry with is directly you're angry with imagination of the person or imagination of the things. So that imagination deceives the mind. It kind of, it acts like the real object. So it's a deceptive. And then thought, the Siddhantic school always says, every thought is, there's the direct object, and then what you call indirect object, maybe direct object and indirect object. The thoughts that imagining the horse, thought that imagining house, thought that imagining the water or the food. So they say imagination is the first direct object, first direct objects. So indirectly is referring to the actual food, actual water, actual house. Right? So the actual object and the thought, and between there's the imaginations. So it's as a mediations between them. So every thought always, has mistaken with respect to its imaginations as the actual object. So that's why the Siddhantic school thinks every thought is the mistaken. Every thought is mistaken, and then they also make a distinction: mistaken and wrong. Thought not necessarily to be wrong perception. But every thoughts are mistaken because it's mistaken with respect to the imaginations. The thought couldn't really separate imagination and the real object. Right? Yeah, so this is the Siddhantic school. Ultimate truth and conventional truth is determined by, things that can function. And then when it comes to this mind-only school says, yes, anything that is functioning due to its own cosmic conditions truly exist, but they are not calling it ultimate truth. It's a true existence, is a truth. Truly exists, inherently exists, intrinsically exists, but not necessarily to be ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is always referring to the one thing, that is the emptiness. So minority school says. Siddhantic school, they don't really talk about emptiness. It's only ultimate truth. So, so minority school, anything that is conditional phenomena truly exists, but not ultimate truth. So ultimate truth is the emptiness of the things, is ultimate truth. Now the two things that truly exist is, the functional things. They use the terminology that's other powered nature and thoroughly established natures. Other powered natures means things that is always exist or functioning, powered by cosmic conditions. So that's other powered natures. So other powered natures truly exist, and emptiness, thoroughly established natures, is these two are truly exist. And other than that, the third entity here is a what do you call it? Imputed phenomena. Imputed phenomena like imaginations and the imputational factors. The minority school says, what is exactly the imputation phenomena? Imputation phenomena, like for example, myself is other power natures and truly exists. My body is truly exists. My mind, my emotion, all truly exist. So this 5 aggregates, becoming the basis of name. So I'm being Tenzi Sherab. I'm the basis for name of Tenzi Sherab. So I become the basis of name of Tenzi Sherab is imputational factors, is imputed. It's not through the cause and condition. Then this is everything is suitable for naming anything. You can name the table as a moon or sun. So table is still the basis for any kind of name. So the becoming the basis of name, is the imputation factor, because all this, something become the basis of name of the moon is always projected by the thought. Is given the name or label by the thought. So that is the imputation of factors. So the minority school said the things divided into 3: other power nature, thoroughly established nature, and imputation of factors. So the first Vavashika school is a little bit easy, and Sudantic school is also very clean definitions. And Sudantic minority school comes, and they're divided into 3 things: other power natures, thoroughly established natures, imputational factors. Then again, the Prasangika school comes more simpler, very simple. Conventional truths. Conventional truths, things that, things, every entity, they're saying that in the Prasangika school, every entity is, they do not really exist by their own essence. They exist relatively. They exist dependently. So anything dependent arising are conventional truths. Because the existing of, for example, existing of the forest is depending upon each trees. Existing of yourself as a human being is depending upon body, feeling, perceptions, emotions. So the bases are, devoid of that designated entity. This body is devoid of you. This body is absence of you. There is no me in my every part of the bodies, not in the moisture, the heat, and the wind, in the space, the hollow, and also is my emotional, each physical feelings, mental feelings, sensations are devoid of person, devoid of male, devoid of female. But these are the basis for the designate, the self, a person, and this also become the basis for designating the self a person is. For example, if there's the emotions, and then this self a person, and then designating a happy person, excited persons, and then by depending on the body and designating the self as strong and weak, right? Short and tall, and then the like eye consciousness, by depending on eye consciousness, then I am seeing, I am smelling, so that the eyes keep changing all the time with characteristics, is because is the self of person is the designative phenomena, and the aggregates are the basis for the designations. So, so the person is, person do not exist by in and of itself. The person is not existing by itself, by in and of itself. it does not exist, it is, possessed to be existing by the thought and depending upon aggregates. So there is no such entity, conventional realities, conventional entity that exists by itself. It always exists with something else, like east and west, north and south, and here and there. So these are whole, So, the saying that, what called concept of difference, table become the different form, computers, the differential of the table and computers is existing depending upon each one. For example, the table is the basis for the differential, and computer is also the basis for the differential of the table being different from the computers. So the differential of these two is existing through the projections, and then basis the both. If one ceases to exist, the differential will disappears. Yeah. So male being different from female. So male being different from females. The male itself to be exist, not necessarily depending on the female. Male become the different from the female, and if there must be female to exist. Without, he cannot be different from the female. Right. So the differentials, so these are continuously existing through the conceptualizations. So the Prasangika school of conventional truth means things that are not exist by itself, it exists through depending upon other factors of the conventional truth. Then the ultimate truth means something that is uncreated by the thought, uncreated, uncompounded, and it is the very basic nature of the things. So the absence of intrinsic natures is uncreated, uncompounded. So that is the ultimate truth. Other than that, everything is a conventional truth. Yeah, so general, the distinctions of the conventional truth, the ultimate truth, in the Prasangika schools is ultimate truths means wisdoms. The ultimate truth means by perceiving it, it becomes the ultimate subject. So realization emptiness is by perceiving or by directly experiencing the absence of intrinsic natures, that subject itself becomes ultimate. And the eye consciousness perceiving the color by depending, from the color, the eye consciousness becomes conventional. Yeah, I think this been a little bit, kunzop, eye consciousness, how it become the conventional subject, from the, by perceiving the color. So eye consciousness become the conventional or deceptive because of the colors. So eye consciousness, how it become the deceptive, because eye consciousness having reflection of the color, and eye consciousness have the, so eye consciousness aware that the color is different from itself. So that when the eye sees the color, what is the evidence? What is the evidence? The eye consciousness, eye consciousness knowing the color is different from the eye consciousness itself, because right after the eye consciousness, the thoughts always pointing out color is there. So which means, eye consciousness already have the notion the color is independent from the eye consciousness. So that's how consciousness becomes the deceptive by perceiving the color. And then the noble wisdoms directly perceiving emptiness. Noble wisdom is undeceived, and then it's because there is no the noble wisdoms, noble wisdoms by directly experience the emptiness. It's free from all the thought, all the concept, just by reaching that ultimate truth. And then during that time, there's no concept, there's no thought. So there's nothing deceived, there's no duplicate, there's no fake. So other than every conventional reality, just perceiving it, there's always dualistic experience. By seeing the colors, you just finger point outside, the color is there, and the smelling, oh, this is very good smell. There is good smell. This is good taste. Or this is heavy, this is rough. This is, heavy and light, rough and soft. So always we point outside. So which means all the perceptions are dualistic experience. So always sees them in the subject and object is independent. The direct realization emptiness has no sense of dualistic.
I have some questions here.
Yeah.
First question. It would seem, it's my label and it's my imposition, but given that, it would seem that if everything is non-dual, there wouldn't even be a display. There's no display without duality, it would seem. Is that correct?
So the first, we did not deny the duals is not non-existence. So dualistic, dual kind of, duality of subject and object is not, rejected. Duality of the subject and object is accepted as a conventional, is the relative. So duality here is not like a cow and horse. So there is already duality, aspect by thinking the color of the leaf. So there is the duality of color and the leaf. So there is, when you say, oh, the size of my head, so there's the dual appearance of the head and its size. So we are not denying the existing of the duality. We are saying this duality is relatively, is not ultimate.
Yeah, but what that's from our position, but from the position of a being that's resting in a non-dual, who's a fully enlightened Buddha. This actually gets into the second question I have, which is about the three kayas. From a being resting in the non-dual, who wouldn't even recognize himself as a being because there's no self-identity. Is there any display? I mean, it seems like for there to be a display, there has to be the imposition of the self. If you're resting in a state of the non-dual, there's no longer, seemingly to me anyhow, the perception of self and other. And if there's no self and other, I suppose there's no left and right, there's no good and bad, there's no inner and outer, there's no bigger and smaller.
Yeah.
There's no even colors that are distinguished from one another. So from that point of view, it would seem there would be no display. And if there's no display, which you would say is at the state of the Dharmakaya, I believe. The Nirmanakaya, once there's a Nirmanakaya, there's a display. And I don't never really understand the Sambhogakaya that well, but I know it's supposed to, and it is a conceptual imposition, but it's kind of said to be a mediator between the Dharmakaya and the display. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it functions. I can see how people can talk about it as an abstraction, but with no possibility, it would seem of really identifying. You can't. I don't think you can point to anything and say, unless you're in that experience, and say, this is Dharmakaya, this is Sambhogakaya. And then I hear even beyond that, the Dharmakaya includes all the kayas, the Sambhogakaya, Nirmanic. So it seems somehow, yes, from the point of the conventional, there's a display. I'm not sure what you say about the Sambhogakaya.
I think you see the display of the duality of the color and leaf, and the color of the leaf and the leaf, the display of the dualities, and what is that, what is the condition that in you that projecting that duality of the color and the leaf. So then this is, now question is this year, for example, the color of the leaves means that already the display of the duality of the leaf and the colors. So that duality of the leaf and the color displayed by your thought, and how your thought is displaying the duality of the color and the color in the leaf. And then there's association with your ignorance. Your ignorance constantly is seeing everything that comes to the mind is always intrinsic. So that duality, now this duality, the display of the duality of the color and the leaf is for the ordinary beings, yes, as language as making distinctions, the color and the leaf for the ordinary beings things. That's ultimately, there's the true things. And then this displays when it comes to the Arya being's mind, and Arya being says, oh, this is the duality that appears due to my ignorance. My ignorance is not the display that is that's ultimately there. It's because of my ignorance, causing my mind to have the appearance of the dualities. Now that dualities, now when it comes to the omniscient, the Buddhas, we ask, do you see that duality? The Buddha says, no, I don't see any duality there. So I can see duality appears in the sentient being's mind, but I don't see from my own experience there is dualities. So when you say Buddha has no duality appearance, Arya, yes, there is duality appearance, but still they understands that duality is projections by the mind that associate with ignorance. In ordinary beings, the duality, yes, it is, it is true, because the ordinary beings, every appearance they give credit, if that's by themselves. It is not my projection. It's there for the ordinary beings. Now that you can raise the questions. So if the omniscience do not seize the dualities when you speak of the color of the leaf, if the omniscience does not seize, so does that not mean that the duality of the color and the leaf is non-existing? Because the omniscient mind not seeing is existence. So this is the question, big questions. So something that is non-existing, if the omniscient mind is not seeing there is the duality of the leaf and the color, so which means proving that color and the leaves are not two separate things. If that is not separate, and here we understand the separation of the color and the leaf is conventional. If that conventional, it is the reality. How this reality is left out, from the omniscient. So omniscient does not mean it sees within 1 second, sees everything, clearly, like things, on your palm. So omniscient sees everything exactly as it is. So this is really kind of, if the duality is not perceived by the omniscient, and which means the duality is non-existing in the reality, and then ordinary beings sees that duality as truly exists. Higher beings sees the dualities. So, and then you come to the point and say, so that duality is, we are going to call it relatively. We are going to call it conventional. So it's still you're accepting it's the real, it's the reality. So the one, there's a one thing that's, you accept it as a reality, but you also accept it is not perceived by the omniscient. So how can not perceived and omniscient and it existing? So which means omniscient is not, not perceiving everything reality. All conventional reality without exceptions has to perceive and actualize, and has to perceived by the omniscient. So because omniscient is all knower. So now there's the Chandrakirti and Bodhisattva kind of interferes this saying that oh, Buddha sees that duality is the reality for the sentient beings. So Buddha does not see the duality appears to the omniscient. Buddha sees the duality is existing in the omniscient mind. Therefore, Buddha understands the all, conventional reality without exceptions. So, for example, when the doctors, the eye doctors, so if someone have cataract, right, and it comes to the doctors, the eye doctors, so not because the eye doctor has these problems, eye doctors knows this patient has these problems, and he has he has knowledge of the cataract. So when he has knowledge of cataract, does not mean he has the cataract. Right. So when the doctor says you have a diabetes, it does not mean, oh, so it's the same as my diabetic. Right. So if the doctor has no diabetic, he cannot understand diabetic. No. So the Buddha, so for the omniscient, there is no duality. For the omniscience, explicitly, what do you call it? Understand, right? Understand. Understand, or there's a better than that? Yeah, understands, ascertains the sentient beings have the appearance of the dualities. So that's how the duality is still, that it's a conventional reality. It is not annihilated. It is not rejected.
That's very difficult for me to.
Yeah, of course.
It seems it would be a mutually exclusive proposition that if you're in the non-dual state, you can't see any arisings or dissolutions or categories. So if that's the case, how can you possibly see the all different possible conventional labeling and infinite number of dual universes? It just seems to me it would be mutually exclusive.
I think it shares the duality and the different are still understood in the different, even in ordinary perceptions. The ordinary perceptions, we all understand when we say the size of the head, ordinary understand the size of the head, and head are verbally and separating it, but in the reality, physically, there is no separate phenomena, right? The size of the head and the head are not physically separate. And it's not like, huh?
But it sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds like.
It sounds like I'm talking about yes and no, and you sound to me like you're talking about a range between ignorant and omniscience. It's not yes or no. There's a whole range, and you could be towards the upper half, the bottom half.
So my question is: yes, it's here. No, is here.
Yeah.
So I can include both. Yes, no. So your yes is here. Your no is there. So you are saying yes and no has to be simultaneously in one, located in one place. That is not true.
Okay.
So I think you're thinking about the duality and the different is the same meaning. That is wrong. Duality and different are not same meaning. Duality is apparently separate, and the different is physically a location from the physically to like apple and orange. So the duality of size of the head and head, duality of space and the empty of the space, duality of the color and the color of the leaves. So these are, that separation is apparent, only apparent level. There's beyond apparent, there is no separate. Right? So that is the dualities. Now this duality is still, causing for the Arya, Arya to kind of invoking or activating their ignorance, even for the Arya. So duality appearance.
I wanted to ask you about this term Arya. It sounds like Arya would include not just bodhisattvas, but like even Pratyeka Buddhas and Arya, and not Aryas, Arhats. It's a very vast term, right?
Arya is a noble being. So noble beings that include Arhat, and some are not Arhat yet, are all Aryas, noble beings. Noble being from the first, path of seeing, path of meditations, are all Aryas. And then these Aryas, once you, free from the afflictive emotions, then Arahat, right? The four destroyers.
Well, is a Pratyeka Buddha is on even the path of seeing? What?
Pratyeka Buddha is Arahat. Pratyeka Buddhas are Arahat.
They are
Arahat.
And so are the noble hearers. What do you call them? The Pratyeka Buddhas. What's that other category?
Hearer are Arhat.
Arhats are hearers.
Yeah.
Are all Arhats hearers, or are all hearers Arhats? There is a difference.
Yes.
Are all Arhats
All
hearers?
the Arhats. Yeah. So I think we better say the Arhats. So Arahat. Aryas are not Arahat. Noble beings, and then what we call liberated beings. Noble being and liberated being. Liberated beings are Arahat. Aryas are the noble beings.
Oh, so Aryas are not Arhats.
Not Arhats. Yeah.
They have to be on the Bodhisattva level.
Yes, the Aryas that includes the hearer and solitaries who are not yet liberated.
So you could be like first or second Bhumi, and you could either be an Arhat or an Arya. You could still be an Arya because you're a Buddha to be, you're a Bodhisattva to be. But some Arhats are not. I mean, technically, eventually they'll be a Bodhisattva, but take them a lot longer.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Bodhisattvas from the noble being like first Bhumi to the 10 Bhumis considered the Aryas. Here there's one thing that we should know is from the first Bhumi, second Bhumi, third Bhumi, fourth Bhumi, fifth Bhumi, sixth Bhumi, and the seventh, the last moment of the seventh and the eighth is like Arhat. They are free from delusions. From the 8th, 9th, 10th, no afflictive emotion. They are free, almost like Arhat. So because they are not called Arhat, because their goal is to attain the Buddhahood. Right. So from the 8th Bhumi is already free from all the afflictive emotions. And the two Arhats, the hearer Arhat and the solitary, Pratyeka Buddhas. So they are free from afflictive emotions, not yet there, applying the antidote for the, obscuration of the knowledge.
These definitions get very, very technical, don't they? And when we hear them, because we don't know all these fine distinctions, it's very easy to get confused and misperceive the categories.
I think your questions, then that duality, the question about the dualities, this is a very big, what do you call it? It's a very complicated thing. So if you kind of, when you are raising the questions of the dualities, and in your mind, you are thinking the duality means different, then every questions about the dualities, it's become, very mysteries. So if you understand different and the dualities are the different. Dualities means separation in appearance. Difference is not just appearance, like a horse and a cow, apple and orange, right? Male and female, table and computers. So these are the different entity, right? So the duality means physically there is no different. There's nothing to kind of make a distinctions. But conceptually, from the language, is it divided into two separate entities. That the separations that is only exists in the appearance level. So that is what we here thinking about the dualities. So dual existence, subject and object, dual existence. The anger, and then that, what you're angry with, attachment, and what you attach to. So that is called dualities. There's no physically they're different, but in your mind, they're clear the distinctions, the anger and what you angry with. So that the subject and object separate, kind of, the separation, the distinction of the distinction, right? Yeah, distinction of the subject and object is only in the appearance level. So that when you get very, very angry, and you are, 100%, you're believing that the subject and object are like apple and orange.
Okay, so talking about apple and orange, let's talk about the human being and horse instead of apple. Yeah, human being and horse. We can say the human being and horse are physically different, right?
Yeah.
You agree? We can say, if we examine them, it's not just in appearance. Of course, they appear different, but they are different. But can a human being and a horse both could they both be on one of the bhumis? Can they both potentially experience non-duality? Can they experience non-duality?
Are you asking question to horse or
Can
cow?
a frog be an enlightened being? Can he be on the seventh bhumi? After all, he was on the maybe he was on the second bhumi, but he made some big mistake, and he was born reappears as a frog. But can he be on can he be a non-dual being? Can he be an Arya?
Yeah. This is like, this is very kind of, very tricky question. So, maybe say, why we call the animal realm. Animal realms is unfortunate realm. No access. to hear the Dharma, nor access to contemplating and understanding of the Dharma. So from there, you can say, no, horses and a cow there is no horses become the noble beings. There is no horse on the first bhumi. There is no horse on the second bhumi. And if you are talking about the potential and the possibilities, yes, even the hell being has the possibility of enlightenment. Hell being the possibility of attaining the first bhumi, second bhumi, third bhumi. That does not mean there's a one hell being it is hell being and first bhumi. There is no common locus. If the first bhumi, he is not a hell being. If he is the first bhumi, he is not the animal, not the horse, not the cow. But each sentient beings possess the potential, the possibility of attaining enlightened being, arhat being. Why not? He has the potential to attain the first bhumi and second bhumi.
Or like for example, there's two examples. Zhang Rinpoche prayed to be reborn in the hells, to liberate the hell beings. And then there's a Buddha, I can't remember his name. He's in Japan, and it's Shingon Buddhism, which means it is a form of Tantric Buddhism that originally came from Tibet. And I don't know if it still is. It was a very popular Buddha in Japan that was reborn in the hell realms. I guess a lot of maybe Japanese expect to go to hell and pray to this particular Buddha to rescue them once they're in hell. And that kind of implies or suggests, I shouldn't say it suggests that any of these realms have the potential of liberation. In fact, even with those, what do you call them? Oh, I can't remember the word. You know, those beings who they're still in their bodies, but they lock themselves up and then they go to the different realms. They're still alive, but on some level they're able to go, what do you call those? Chakra Rinpoche's mother was there's a word for it in Tibetan. I can't remember it. But there are beings that they can actually visit the realms.
I think the one caution can erase all this nonsense. One question is there Bodhisattvas or the Buddha who are born in the hell realm? If there is no Buddha, right? So born in hell being means, he must have committed the karma to fall in the lower realm. If there is no Buddha born in hell being, and how can be there the Buddha in the hell realm? How can be there the Buddha in the animal realms?
Or human realm.
Yeah, the human realms. So here the human realms is the two conditions. So born in human beings out of compassion still needs to be born in human beings. Bodhisattvas, the Buddha, the born in human realms. This is out of compassion. The Arhat do not born out of compassion. Arhat, also lacks the karma to be born in human realm. So there's no Arhat. After having attained Arhat, and no karma to be born again back to the human realms. So then now the question is, if there is no hell being and Buddha being hell being, and then helping dispelling the suffering of the hell beings. So, and then if there is nothing, and then how do you really explain? So there's the Bodhisattvas, in the form of Bodhisattva, actually is the Buddha. So we go, say Nyingbo, say Nyingbo, Nanping Nyingbo, the one of the Buddha that is, specifically kind of manifest in the form of dispelling the suffering of particularly the hell beings. So how do you really explain that Buddha is not a hell being, and how can he in the hell being? So now it says he is dedicated and manifests in the form of the particular form that is, how to say, assigned to be the dispelling the hell beings, right? So that we can understand, but still there is no possible understanding that the Buddha and become hell being is impossible. Right? Even the Buddha, like the 10th Bhumi of the Bodhisattvas, and in a human being, human form, and one part of him is in the pure realm. So the both get enlightened simultaneously at the same time, because there's one person, one in the human form, one in the pure realm, the Bodhisattvas form. So now this there's in the Prajaparamita, the debate is, so how this person in the human being, attain the enlightened being within the human, the how's that? What do you call it? 6 constituents of the element. And then the text says, no, this particular Bodhisattva was, and ready to be enlightened is not have the constituents, 6 constituents of the elements of the human being. He's already free, but he's still in the form of human being. So there is no elementally, like the elements, human beings are very much kind of, overpowered by mind, is very much driven by the elements. The mind influences the element influences the mind. So that kind of pretty much kind of, this visual, the influence the mind and the body, and that, defines the human being. So that state, that kind of, what you call condition is not in the 10th Bhumi. So 10th Bhumi is already, his mind is not, cannot be overpowered by element. So mind rather more overpowering on the elements, control the elements. So come, they call come. So constituents level, he is not in human constituents, but he is physically in the form of human beings.
That's the whole idea of the tuku, I think. but now I want you, if you
I
would.
think you have a very much resentment towards the tukus.
What's that? I have what?
You're resentment on tukus.
I don't resent tukus. I like to. I have a lot of tuku acquaintances and whatnot, and teachers from the past. But now I want you, if you would, I request you to discuss dialogues. That's the one I was looking for, a dialogue. And dialogues.
Dialogue, okay.
Yeah, are they all bodhisattvas? And aren't they said to be able to, I mean, I know this very clearly from what I read, to visit different realms, and sometimes when they visit these realms, at least in the instance I read on, she witnessed many advanced yogis visiting the lower realms and liberating large numbers of beings. So where do dialogues fit into this whole thing? Are they all bodhisattvas on the bhumis, or how do they fit in this? And maybe you can describe for everyone what a dialogue is and what the term means.
Yeah. dialogue is, someone who is back from the death. So dialogue, deva is death, law means return from the death. So, like in one form, he died and he come back again. So that is dialogue. So that sometimes it seems like the fiction stories. It's more like fiction stories to particularly, created to develop some kind of sense of faith, having faith in law and cause and effect. For that purpose, they create this kind of fiction stories. Now,
I don't
yeah.
believe that.
Now, let me say,
and the reason I don't believe that is because Chokden Rinpoche, who was a very
but this also in the reality, there's some people have this experience. They're kind of
his mother was a dialogue.
So some people they took to the hospital and doctor pronounced the death and then still come back. And the person, he has some kind of experience to say, oh, I was just kind of, pulled back and somewhere and there's a universe and suddenly there's a light in there and he's pulling back to the dark and then she just kind of, awake. And then, which means is in the subtle kind of, subtle level, not dead. And subtle energy is not departed from the body. So this is almost like a, tuktam, so we call tuktam. So there's some masters, when they die, they're in a state in meditations. So we call chiva is this. And it's a process of dying, not a death. It's the process of dying. So this is not the death. So so the energy, subtle energy hasn't really departed from the body. But there is the, maybe the karma, maybe, any powerful circumstance, and then this person just start to breathing again. So, so that is, if that is the kind of, defines the, the dialogue, and then it is not really reach, touch the death. It is you are almost very much closer to the death, and then you return back, start breathing again. And that is, even the ordinary people, many people have experienced, not necessarily Bodhisattvas. Dialogue is. So I heard one story from one of the Mexican lady, and she said she got an accident and she took to the hospital, and then doctors started doing the operations, and her mind is already outside of the body. She's looking at the doctors, how they play. And then suddenly she just pulled and she came to some place. There's a very, place, the very light and all over very peaceful. And then they declare there's a border in her side, the other side. Her side is a little bit dark. And the front is very light, very bright. And then she was almost trying to reach there, and then she, instantly pulled back. So that's what she was saying. So that's the subtle energy hasn't really departed from the body. Yeah, and then sometimes the mind, the speed of the mind is almost inconceivable. So when the speed of the mind, when you think, the speed of the mind and the projection of the mind is much faster than the light, maybe. Yeah. So each mind that's speeding up their imagination, the mental projections, and you have a lot of stories to tell from there. So in Hindu, there's a story. Actually, it's kind of very similar. And there's a one boy, and in the Buddhist they say there's one boy, the small boy, who was playing outside, and the mother called for the breakfast. And then he, when he reached to the stairs, and he was imagining the rail of the stairs, the rail, right? Mm-hmm. He mount on the rail like you're riding the horse, mm-hmm. and she start creating imaginations. He's riding the horse, and then he kind of end up in a new village, and he meet the girl, and he so married with the girl, and he got two children, and got old, like 80 years old. And then again, mother called again. Mm-hmm. Hey, you're not coming. Mm-hmm. And he just, wake up from that. So in that, maybe within the 1-2 minutes, so his mind speeding up his imaginations, and he is there in that imaginations, in the presence of each imaginations. So he feel like he got married, and he got old, and 80 years old, live, and then come back, still the tea hasn't cold yet. Right. And then in the Hindu, there's this stories. One day, the Krishna and one of his best friend. I always remember his name. So the friend asked, "You are the Bhagavan, and so how do you really describe the Mahamaya, Maya's illusions?" And Krishna says, "Oh, it's just forget about it. Just go to, there's a river. We take bath, and then he dip in water, right? Instantly, when he was dipped, right? Dip in the water, and then he, came up in some place. Again, he just meet with the girl and Mary and all of them, and then instantly Krishna said, "Why are you staying too long in there?" So when he come out from the water, so what is that? I live all my life, like I have children and I'm almost dying there, and you just pull back, and it hasn't been a minute or 2 minutes. So that's the speed of the mind. So mind speeding its imagination projections. You live in each imaginations. You feel like you have lived very long. So the conventional, the ordinary, the timing is still there, kind of moving very slow. So that kind of things, yeah. When you're in the process of dying, and your mind is speeding up in the mental projections, and you live with each imaginations, when you come out from that death kind of conditions, you have a story to tell. When he grew out, no one sees that, right? No one sees that. He was in the imagination.
Are those people all dialogues?
Yeah, if you're one who is, almost reached the death and coming back and start breathing again, it's Deva. It literally means Deva in the return from the death.
But there are also Bodhisattva dialogues, aren't there?
That I don't know. I have no idea. So sometimes, yeah, I think, I mentioned the last time the Kadamba Geshe Gombawa. So he, through the meditations, he kind of deliberately, he stopped all the mind, the mental functions, and even the breathings. He was totally single-pointed concentrating on that non-discriminating state of mind, right? So there is nothing to, there's no story to tell. But she was focused on the one single object.
Was he in a state of ignorance or a state of discriminating wisdom?
State of non-discriminated kind of concentration or non-discriminated. What's the English term for that?
Non-discriminating awareness.
Non-discriminating awareness or something. So actually, nyumju is this concentrations. And concentrations, so nyumba means equalizing. And juba means concentrate. By concentrating single-pointedly, that equals or balance the elements and no functions, movement in the mind, no movement in the breathings and the physical activities. Total, equalized, right? So because of the power of that concentrations, so when you're in that concentrations, you have no projection, mental projection. So when you come out from that meditations, there's no story to tell. So that you can just say maybe dialogue, I don't know.
Is that a state of wisdom or not necessarily a state of wisdom?
Yeah, this is wisdom. Yeah, this is very wisdom.
So does being in a state of wisdom, does it always entail kind of cutting off all these external distractions and maybe inner distractions too? If you're, is that always when you use the state of discriminating wisdom awareness, that sometimes people combine wisdom, discriminating wisdom awareness.
Non-discriminating, yeah.
Does that always involve cutting off from all these dualistic things? You're withdrawing. It seems you're withdrawing your senses and you're focusing only on one thing very clearly. Is that always? That's always a state of wisdom, and to be in a state of wisdom, is that what you always have to do?
I don't know what's the question.
Oh, okay. Let me try again. In other words, when you're in a state of wisdom awareness, does that always involve withdrawing all the senses?
Not necessary.
Okay, can you discuss that a little bit so I can get a little clarity on
The first of all, I don't have this experience of this non-discriminating state of in the concentrations, but I can, according to the book. So this particularly specific meditations is deliberately, stop all the activities, the function of the body and the mind. So usually, there's a what do you call it? In the color chakras, in the dedications parts, they're saying so there is in the subconsciously or sub-levelly functioning of 21,000 wind flows. So each wind flows with each thoughts, which means when you are thinking or eating or doing, and then many in this what you call subconsciously, there's a 21,000 wind with 21,000 thoughts at the processing. So now this specific meditation is inactivate, right? Inactivate the whole thought process and the function of the wind totally cease, kind of dissolve in that concentration. So there's one single mental state functioning, and the rest is just totally ceased for a moment. So I think that really, kind of as a physical sign, you can see is this person is not breathing, and the heat of the body is not gone, it's still there. So when there is no any thought process in your mind at the time of single pointed meditations, you have deliberately ceased them, right, to activate. So I think this is kind of, is much profound than the single pointed single pointed meditation. Single pointed meditations, most of the time, always done by mental factors. There's six perceptions, the mental perceptions, which are, what do you call it? Very much related to our sensory perceptions. The mind that thinking about the house and the food, and these are always kind of subsequently arises from the sensual experience. And some of those mental factors, they focus on the emptiness or single pointed meditations. That is, it has no power to seize the activities of the rest of the mental factors. The subconscious level is not really stopping it. So there's in the 6-year hardship practice, the Shakyamuni Buddha, and in his experience, he was, almost like mentally, he was just, deep, what do you call it? Almost like, so his mind is, mental level is kind of, vividly, examining in each part of the elements inside the body. Even says Buddhist, he says, even I touch with each drops of the water in the body. So that much power, the concentrations. So it's kind of easily, it kind of stop the subconscious in a very subconscious level of the, kind of, movement of the wind and the thought. So it's going very, very deep. Yeah, this much I can say. So, it's not easy.
One of the question I asked.
This is like a blind man explaining about about the map of the world.
I asked, is it always this way to be in a state of discriminating wisdom and awareness? And your answer was not always. So it sounds like this is just one way, but there's other ways as well.
Yeah, I still remember the sutras from the sutras. This never really forget from my mind. But many, many years, 20, 30 years, I read this sutra. And then it's always, stays in my mind. Religion is magapanis. Religion is ombo the majuba yish. Number sugar, luda majuba yinos. This is what sutra says. Religion is magapan. Ombo the majuba yish. Religion is activities, of the physical, which includes the activities of the fire elements, the wind elements, and the heat, the earth elements. So each element that moving or the functioning or waving, and so that always involves some thought is there to create the function of the elements. So this non-discriminating state of the concentrations is not going to damaging or destroying this, the element, and it's not going to, it's not really destroying or destroying the state of the sense faculties. It's not damaging on the sense faculty. It's not damaging on the elements. At that time, consciousness hasn't departed from the body, but there is no function of the breathing. There's no function of the vivid function of the elements. No thought process. It seems like exactly the person has died, but the consciousness hasn't departed from the body. So this is what Buddha says when it comes to explaining this non-discriminating state of the concentrations. So this, I remember from the sutra this says. So according to that sutra, then I can explain what is non-discriminating state of concentration.
What is the name of the sutra?
Sutra is called Mallet. So, I don't remember the sutra's name, but I remember the line. It's the Prajaparamita Sutras. It's the Prajaparamita Sutras. Within the Prajaparamita Sutras, there's many. Each sutras named by the disciple. So this Bodhisattva, particular disciple who raised these questions on that particular topic, and then sutta named by that, that disciple. So there's a Majjhimito, and then Cheresikindo means Manjushri Sutra, Avalokitara Sutras, means these questions raised by those Bodhisattvas.
Well, maybe I'm going to make a formal request that if you can find the sutra, that you teach on it. Teach us on it.
Okay. This is almost like when I'm explaining this, like, blind man, they, trying to explain his country. So
my tongue's not cut out, so I could probably, even if I was blind, explain something about this country.
So even with the open eye, you cannot describe the countries. So
It may not help. My eyes were open, not my physical eyes.
So they're coming back to the point, the dualities. So the dualities, you do not, consider it like apple and orange. The dualities and only, described in the appearance level, the separation that appears to the mind or the subject, right? The separation that exists merely within the subject is the dualities. That duality cannot be groundable within any physical or any locations. So the horse and the cows physically, separate. So it's from the ground you can see they are different. Apple and orange, each, occupied its own area and positions. So this is color and the leaf and its color is separate, is not physical level. It is only in appearance level. So that is dualities. If you mix with the different and duality, and then it's very difficult to understand. So there's almost impossible. Right? So here now saying, now the eye consciousness seeing color is the dualities. Now the question is, which means the eye consciousness and the color is not like apple and orange. Yes, eye consciousness and the color is not apple and orange. Nose consciousness and smell is not apple and orange. Tongue consciousness and taste are not apple and orange. Not physically located in two separate areas. So, and then what is the what is the kind of the evidence that you have the dual experience with the eye consciousness? How do you really experience eye consciousness and dual experience? So the eye consciousness did not tell you, well, I experienced this, but immediately the thought, right after the eye consciousness thought, tend to think that, the color is outside there. Right? So that is the proof. The eye consciousness, while eye consciousness perceiving the color, it has the dual experience. Right? Consciousness sees the subject and object as independent. Yeah, so, and the color and the eye consciousness not independent. The color and the eye sense power is not independent. The color in the light is not independent. Color in the form that light hits on is also not independent, which means the color is not located in the form, color is not located in the light, not in the sense power. So they collectively, like a rainbow, it exists. Rainbow-like existence. Yeah, I asked Siri what is the color. The color Siri says, is electric magnetic perceptions based on, I remember that, based on something. So electric magnetic perceptions. So it's just kind of electric means there's no really independent thing. Yeah, and I think 2 years back, I asked Siri a question about color, and she has another description of the color. Now she has another, because someone, programmed to correct that. So AI has no independent function. Yeah. So true truths is very not easy to understand the true truth. So almost like, what is the truth? What is the real? It's hard to really make it kind of, hard to determine what is the real. So it's conventional, it's out of habit, with language, with concept, and you accept, yes, it is the real. So, and then to Larry's question about the true gurus, this true gurus only in the Tibetan cultures. So there's no Buddhist, concept that's talking about reincarnation and true gurus. So only Tibetan.
Well, yes, that's probably true. But however, many Southeast Asian countries, including Bangladesh, which now is primarily overwhelmingly Islamic, but there is a Buddhist community. But when you're talking about Bangladesh or Thailand, maybe Cambodia, I suspect, there are arhats The wisdom beings are called arhats there. And I can never be sure myself whether the arhats are real arhats or whether they're bodhisattvas who call themselves arhats, because they're definitely trying to help sentient beings.
Yeah. In the Pali, arahat. The Sanskrit arahang or something like that.
Yeah, they use that's right. Depends on the culture. Sometimes they call them arhats.
Bangladesh,
There's
the
many
Bangladesh accents, even the Vajra, the Bajara. Vajra is the Bajara. So Tibetan, I think, seems like Tibetan have, the pronunciations. Benza. Looks like, Bangla, the accents trying to, adapt Bajra. So because maybe Atisha, maybe the Tibetan people is trying to pronounce his accents. So Benza Sadhu Samaya. Actually, it's Vajra Sadhu Samaya. In the Bangladesh, people would decide Bajra Sadhu Samaya. Banu Bashis. There's Bangladesh. Okay. Chanju Semjo Remboje, Maje Bana Geju, Jevanya Bam Nevajo, Kone Pevas, Onye Tawa Remboje, Maje Bana Geju, Jevanya Bam Nevajo, Kone Pevas, Pama Sinjantam, Dela Deja, Yendo Tamsi Tado, Tola, Chanju Sembo, Kana Sushi, Tadaku, Monam Juju, Karera Rebo, Penda, Woma, Juju, Jerezon, Tinzi Jato, Shabe, Sideva,
the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have decline.
May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow.
May that born have not decline, but increase forever.
Due to all these merits, may all Father and Mother sentient beings have all happiness, and may all their worlds be empty. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all of their prayers be accomplished.
In the sacred
lands surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. O powerful Chandrakirti, Tenzin Gyatso, remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you very much. So, may still have the precious pill?
Oh, yes.